Welcome to the HU Movemakers podcast, where we highlight folks that are blazing the trail and making moves in Howard culture. Welcome to the HU Movemaker podcast, where we highlight Howard folks that are making moves and blazing the trail at the highest levels. Today we have a very, very special guest, a finalist, Rhodes Scholarship finalist. Came out of Howard with a 4.0 GPA. She was once president of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Alpha Chapter. Man. Phi Sigma Pi Honor Fraternity. Rest in peace, Phi Sigma Pi. LSU lecturer, transplant hepatologist. It's a lot of stuff. Founder and CEO of Med School Admit, native of New Orleans, Howard University, Harvard Medical School, Johns Hopkins, Baylor, Tulane, wife, mother of 3, enjoys movies, endurance sports. She even played tennis at Howard for 3 years and was team captain. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Gia Tyson, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Oh, no problem. Your bio is crazy. What haven't you done in your field? That bio was crazy. But, let's start off with something light before we dig into the nitty-gritty details.
Okay.
Just tell me about the Fab Five.
Oh, the Fab Five. This is what makes Howard University so special, is that I'm sure everyone has their crew. And our crew are the Fab Five. It's 5 of us that became very close. Most of us actually became close before we started Howard. There was like a summer enrichment program for people who were interested in medicine. And so we were just there, 17, 18, excited that we had this new experience on the horizon. We really didn't have real work to do, so we could be on campus, relaxing without the pressure. And so I met Amber and Tamika and Cassandra during that summer program. And then it was later through Phi Sigma Pi that we met LaTanya, and the 5 of us have stayed very close since then. And I forget how the name came, but we became the Fab Five. And then there's an extension of us actually that's called the BF Circle. And so the BF Circle were other people who we're close with, who may have been a little bit older, like Michelle Arrington or Kari Jackson, a whole crew of people. I won't name them all, Isa, Miles. So it's a number of them who kind of the extended family of the Fab Five, and we all have remained very close. The Fab, we actually all kind of turned 40-ish last year, and we took a big trip to Italy, to the Amalfi Coast, which was absolutely amazing.
Wow, that's awesome that you created those relationships at Howard and before you got to Howard, especially. This is I don't know if internet quite existed, but
it was like kind of pre-cell phone-ish, really pre-real internet, definitely pre-social media. And so, to create those kind of ties, and that's what's just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful about, I think, that experience. And I think what a lot of people have at HBCUs is that, I know that some people kind of tap out at high school, like their high school crew is kind of their thing, which I had a great high school, and I love those people that I became friends with, but the people and the relationships that I built at Howard are just like unsurpassable. And they have stood, as you said in my bio, I don't know how many moves, how many relocations, marriages, kids, all of it. And in fact, some of the Fab Five plus the BF Circle came to see me do my first half Ironman in Augusta, 70.3 in 2018.
When I read your bio, one thing that stands out is like academic excellence. And I'm sure it didn't start at Howard, but I did see you graduate Howard with a 4.0, which I want to talk about later. But where did the medical journey begin? When did you realize you wanted to be in the health profession?
Yeah, it started pretty early for me, like in high school. I was always pretty strong in math and sciences. And so you tend to go towards where your gifts are. I can't sing, I can't play. I'm not even actually that into music. So, when you're not drawn to that and you are drawn to something else, you kind of let those doors continue to open for you, and you hopefully follow those paths. And so that's what I did. And we had the luxury of having Xavier University, which is a very renowned institution for getting people into medical school, in my own city. And they had programs like BioStar, ChemStar, basically science programs that you could attend if that was your interest. And so I attended some of those programs. It further confirmed my interest in medicine. And then I had a pediatrician who I was, really fond of, and she let me spend some time in her office to see if medicine was kind of what I want to do. And so I initially thought I would want to, do pediatrics. And I was pretty focused. And so being kind of more focused / competitive kind of person, not so much externally, but internally kind of competitive, and a little bit externally. As a student athlete, because I played tennis also throughout high school, once I kind of decide that I want to do something, I get pretty focused on it. And then I think, okay, well, what is the framework? What's the map that I need to do to kind of accomplish that goal? And so once I really kind of realized that I love science, I love interacting with people, I love the humanistic aspect of medicine, and wanted to pursue that, then it was like, the laser focus kind of turned on and stayed on.
So is it? So I would say that you were in high school. Did you have a 4.0 out of high school too?
I did. I had over a 4.0 out of high school, because you could get more than a 4.0. And I went to a pretty competitive high school in Louisiana.
Damn.
At Ben
Was
Franklin.
it straight A's? Straight A's in high school?
It wasn't straight A's in high school, no. I graduated maybe the top 10 in my class, and it was over 4.0 just because when you had AP classes and other things that were weighted. So I actually went into Howard, I think, with over a year's worth of credit, but I didn't really capitalize on it. Yeah, I tell students all the time, like, don't rush the college experience. Don't try to get out. Enjoy it. I want it all 4 of my years.
What made you decide to go to Howard?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I mean, I hate to say this now, but HBCUs and that experience really wasn't on my radar screen. I didn't have big influences that said, oh yeah, who went to Howard, all this long Howard legacy, or like now that I live in Baton Rouge, Southern has deep roots. And so people are like Southern families. I didn't really have that. And I went to like a pretty predominantly white kind of high school. It was fairly mixed, but mostly white, and obviously didn't really expose me to a lot of that. And so I really thought I was going to like Duke or Emory. I applied to Harvard early decision, didn't get in. And two of my best friends, even to close friends, growing up in high school and even beyond, and who I ultimately ended up going to Harvard for med school with, they both got into Harvard for undergrad. And so that was tough. It was tough to like, this is kind of what you want. You're focused on it. You've excelled, and then you fell short. You didn't get it. And not only that, but two of your kind of close friends at the time are going. And so then my backup was kind of, well, let me try to hit like the Duke level, the Emory level kind of school. And I was pretty much thought I was going to Emory. And let me tell you how God works, is that my mom literally ran into what was going to be the provost of Howard University's wife in the grocery store. So I don't know if you remember Antoine Garibaldi. I don't know if he was there when you were there. He was there for a few years, so not long at Howard. But my mother ran into his wife in the grocery store, invited him over to our house for dinner.
Really?
Dinner.
So you got to tell me about your family, then. This don't run into presidents and executives and then say, hey, come over for dinner. I mean, tell me about your parents and the family you come from.
Well, I mean, my parents actually divorced when I was young, and they both got remarried very early. And so my mom and stepdad have been married, probably over 35 years now. And the same thing, my dad and stepmom have been married probably for over 30 years, or, just basically have been together for a long time. And so my mom and both dad grew up for African Americans at that time, grew up in pretty solidly middle class families. So like my grandfather, my mom's side, owned a glass company that was very successful, like cutting glass and doing glass work. And my grandfather on my dad's side owned his own limousine company, Landry's Limousines. And they were basically around the corner from each other in Pontchartrain Park, which was kind of a solidly Black middle class neighborhood for that time period. And so I think through that experience, my mom's mother was a teacher. She died during childbirth when my mom was 16, but had exposed them to like pretty unusual environments and integrations of schools and that level of exposure in terms of going to different, Catholic schools, private schools, that kind of thing. And they had a lot of relationships, I think, out of that. And then my stepfather is a dentist, so that was some exposure to the kind of medical fields through him. My dad graduated from high school, but he actually did not go to college. And my stepmom is a speech pathologist and had some more advanced education.
What is it like when you get to Howard and your folks are gone and it's just you?
Yeah. So when I first went to that summer program, I had never been to DC. So I went to Howard sight unseen, city unseen, anything. And that's like consistent with my personality. I like kind of go, I'm not afraid, I'm pretty independent. So I was excited to explore what it was going to be. And just like you said, I feel like, we're taught in this culture that we are exceptions, right? That as a Black woman who's excelling, speaking well and striving for this, you are an exception. And what's so beautiful about the Mecca is that when you get there, you realize you're not an exception, that there are many people who have very similar experiences in you, but then many people who have very different experiences than you, but are unbelievably smart, unbelievably talented, that have unbelievable vision and like connections that you can make. And so that was eye-opening for me. It was like, you're not going to necessarily have to be the smartest person here. You may not be the smartest person here. Like, there are other smart Black people and talented Black people in the world, and we're not as rare as you've been trained to think.
Did you have a plan when you got to Howard of like, because I know you had to have a chip on your shoulder from not getting into Harvard.
The competitor in me is like, hold up, we have to figure something out. So, I had like probably a soft plan. Like, I knew that I wanted to go to medicine. So I knew that undergrad wasn't my end all and be all. And so as the kind of strategist, so to speak, that just I naturally am, I had to think, you're going to be here for 4 years. How do you need to use it? What do you need to do? What's the goal so that you can get into medical school and then hopefully get into the medical school of your choice? Now, remember, when you're a student athlete, that's also different. So even though I was on academic scholarship, I started with the tennis team day one. And so we had practices twice a day. We had practice where we did conditioning. So I would go and work out hard and I would be tired. I mean, I remember going to Biology 101 thinking like, this is not going to be easy because you're sleepy. Like, you're tired from waking up at 5 a.m, whatever it was. Your strength and conditioning training and your cardio and endurance training. And then we're playing tennis in the afternoon. So I realized very quickly that I was going to have to be unbelievably focused to manage being a student athlete. And so that was one of the blessings, because so many other people, I think, weren't efficient with their time, but I had to use my time very early, very efficiently, because I was on the tennis team.
Where do you get like this where do you get that level of focus from? Because me, when I got to Howard, they had like shuttle buses that would take you to the club. I was like, oh, perfect.
I remember those.
So I was tired from coming from the club, and like 9 o'clock classes were a struggle to me. Where did you get like this level of focus from? Because you're in a position where you have all this freedom, and you're approaching it, like a responsible adult, and a lot of us don't do that.
Now, so I'm gonna say I was on the buses. On the buses too. And that's what I realized. That's what's funny about it is that, I live close to the tennis team. So even though we weren't in Cook, other people on the tennis team also lived in the annex. So we didn't live in Cook our first year. We lived in Cook our second year. So other tennis team members were with me, and that was important. But let me tell you this, our room somehow became the room to come to and hang out with. But I always knew if you get behind in undergrad, it's hard to catch up. And you can't get behind with the kind of schedule I had. And so as an athlete, you have a certain level of discipline just from that. So, and that's why I always say, like, I really want my kids to really get involved in athletics and like play something really competitively, because you learn a whole new skill set of like toughness, of focus, of drive.
Welcome to the Go Fish Village podcast. As a Chinese proverb says, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. At Go Fish, our goal is to teach individuals just like you how to build wealth through real estate. What about socially? Like, are you are you kicking it at all, or is it pretty much because bio I gotta imagine is super tough, and tennis is tough just from a standpoint of it's a sport, so you're constantly competing against yourself and against other schools. What about socially?
Nah, I mean, social was important to me. That's why I say, every now and then I was on that bus too, going to quit, dropping us off wherever we needed to go. Like I said, the people would kind of come and hang out in our room. Our room was kind of the spot to hang out at. And then um, Janine Pettiford, who's an AKA, who's above me, I forget how we kind of connected, but she kind of took me under her wing and actually invited me, I think it was freshman year, to Ivy Day. So then I kind of got exposed to like the whole world of AKA. I
What's
think
Ivy Day? What's Ivy Day?
Ivy Day is just a kind of a day that we it's like a certain special kind of celebration day within the sorority that we had every year.
Now,
And
is that something that non-members can come to as well?
yeah, so non-members can come to it. So you can invite, but you have to be invited to it. Um,
Ah,
yeah. And
domination. Planets
so,
coming together. So, did you come from a family that had Greeks?
so my stepdad is a Kappa and my stepmom is an AKA. And my stepmom is very involved in AKA.
Got
Even
you, got you. So, when you got to Howard, was that a plan, or were you like, I'm gonna check out the different organizations and then decide what I want to do, or did you always want to become an AKA?
so I thought, doing AKA would be something that I was interested in and probably part of my process and plan. And then remember, I came in fall of 97. So there was a spring of 98 line. And so you can't help when you have that interest and you see the AKAs kind of be presented on campus as it was at that time. So spring 98, some are freshmen, excited about things. And then you see Alpha chapter come out and just all the regalia and hype and energy. It
Yeah.
was beyond impressive. And so then I think it was that same spring to kind of be invited to Ivy Day felt very special. And then that's kind of cemented my focus and my journey to become a
So,
member.
so being invited to Ivy Day is kind of like, hey, we think would be an asset to our organization. Check it out, type of thing. Get to know us, type of thing.
Yeah, that's how it felt. There weren't a lot of other people there who weren't in the sorority.
They was like, yo, she gonna be running shit. So, hey, sign her up now.
I don't know. And then I did what I needed to do, right? I was humble. I tried to be humble myself, show my
Yeah.
interest.
So how were you humble? I mean, you know, I remember going out for Phi Sig and interviewing in Phi Sig, and they were like, I remember one of the questions was like, what's humility? And I messed that whole answer up like big time. I was like, oh, embarrassment, making you do something you don't want to do, and I thought it was the best answer ever until I went home and Googled, not Google, but research what humility was, and I missed the mark by so much. And I had no reason to be like that arrogant. But you, on the other hand, you know, what is it like to have to humble yourself, not just in the sorority, but even at Howard? You know what I'm saying? Where a lot of things are kind of political, or who and it's very competitive. It's a lot of pretty women, it's a lot of everything. What was it like to have to be put in that position of humility when sometimes in the back of your head you're like, yo, y'all know who you talking to? You talking to the future doctor Gia Tyson. Like I'm the only liver specialist in Baton Rouge. Like, you guys know who you talking to?
Well, I mean, that's why it's so funny. It's all about perspective, right? So the challenge is that I never felt that I was anything special. Like, to be honest with you. And it's been years of my life that I personally never felt particularly special, although people from the outside would say differently. If you don't feel that, it's very easy to be humble because I'm not even really humbling myself. You feel like, oh, wait, I don't really am I really that smart? You don't see yourself as really that smart or as really that talented. And maybe there are problems with that. But that was a lot with me growing up too. I didn't get into Harvard, and I know I could do well in
But it's
school.
Harvard. That's like 99% of everyone.
I know, but I guess, I didn't really feel it. I felt like I always come from a place really of gratitude in that like I'm really grateful to have the things that I have and to be exposed to the things that I have. And I never take for granted that it's just given to me. I mean, I've always been a very faithful person and my relationship with God has always been very strong from a young age. And so I felt very blessed. And so I think when you feel like you're not entitled to these things, and also that anytime maybe things in your life can change, then it instills a level of humility in you.
Man, that's real. That's real. So at what point did you join Phi Sigma Pi first or did you join AKA first?
Yeah, so I joined Phi Sigma Pi first, as then Phi Sigma Pi became like the breeding ground for like future every sorority. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we had Qs came out of there, alphas, AKAs, deltas. Like Phi Sig was like the,
Yeah, yeah. It was like either it was a stepping stone to basically do kind of whatever you wanted to do at Howard, either that or Campus Pals. It was like you can go either way with it. It's funny because when I joined Campus Pals, I was like, I don't got to do nothing else. When I became Phi Sig, I was like, you know, I was straight. Like, were you always? It seems like you were kind of always thinking ahead. In terms of where you wanted to be and how you wanted to go about doing it. Is that a fair assessment?
That's a fair assessment. I mean, I try to not make it seem like my life is just so calculated. I mean, but in some ways, I think to be successful, and most people who are, you have to have some basic strategy or vision for where you're going. And so, I can't lie and say that I didn't have that, but I always try to do things that are important to me and are true to me. So I don't just do stuff to check the box. So that's not me. So like Phi Sig, why it was a stepping stone to so many Greek organizations for people is because it was also a place just for people who were doing good stuff on campus, like, who were involved on campus, who were achieving, and like-minded people want to be together. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why Phi Sigma Pi was so important. And it was just another organization that allowed people with similar interests and goals and who were motivated to kind of come together, and those same personality traits similarly, then clearly would probably explore other organizations. So, yeah, I'm always kind of strategizing, which I don't think is a problem, but I think you've got to strategize in a way that's true and honest to you and consistent with like your interest and your growth and development. And so at Howard, I pursued a lot of things that allowed me to grow in unbelievable ways. Not to mention just how I used my summers there, which were invaluable.
So in the summers, did you have internships? Were you traveling? What were you doing over the summer?
Yeah, so in my first summer, I did a pre-med program that almost like most minority doctors kind of went through during that era. It was called Minority Medical Education Program, and there were different sites around the country, and I chose Chicago. So I had a great summer.
Oh,
That was
nice.
the last year the Bulls won the championship.
At 98?
Down and to the, what was it? Where were we at? Where they do the Taste of Chicago? What's it called again?
Grant Park?
Grant Park.
Yeah.
It was like a huge celebration, just enjoyed that time. My friend Kelly was there, who had finished her first year at Harvard. And so had a great summer with amazing people while we kind of learned more in detail what it was going to take for us to get into medical school. And then the nice thing about being in Washington, D.C., the epicenter of anything that you could want in terms of no matter what career you're going to go into, was that the National Institutes of Health was there. So in my second summer, I did physics, and then I also did research at NIH, and I knew that doing research was going to be an important component of getting into medical school. And so my researcher and I developed a great relationship, and we actually were in touch just last year. And he wrote ended up being a very strong letter for me to go to Harvard. And then in the third year, I went to Africa and spent the summer in Kenya, and that was absolutely life changing in a very kind of not touristy way. Went with a group of people through Operation Crossroads Africa. It was
Hmm.
about 7 of us in the group. We lived in near Kisi, and we pretty much stayed like in a place without electricity, water. Some of us went to volunteer in hospitals during the day. Others stayed back and went and got the food and made sure things were cooked. And we had to boil water to have hot water. I mean, it was nothing but a time of reflection and introspection. And it was during that summer that I wrote my personal statement, which I think made it very powerful for medical school. And then I went back to Africa the next summer too.
Wow.
And then I went to West Africa, and I spent the summer in Mali, which was interesting, being in a Muslim country. On Fridays, things shut down and there was prayer. And I was working on French. I mean, again, a personal interest of mine is I'm a little bit of a Francophile. I wanted to learn how to speak French. So I went to Mali and then visited Senegal while I was there as well and worked on my French. And then I'd ultimately picked that back up in medical school. And I got Harvard to give me credit for spending 2 months in France. And so, it's a balance, right? It's life. You got to live life. You got to figure out.
It sounds like you are maximizing on opportunities and passions that you have. That to me that's crazy. So by the time you're applying for Harvard, your resume is like crazy.
So that's why I was encouraged by Howard to apply for the Rhodes Scholarship, because I had done so much by then, and I had created actually an after school program at Banneker and just a number of things, during that time. Did student government. I was junior class president of arts and sciences. And so everything was there to kind of apply for the Rhodes Scholarship, which was another kind of just life-changing experience for me. You'll never kind of go through kind of interviews like you do for the Rhodes. And again, the way God works it out is that after going through that process, there was no interview for medical school that could be harder than interviewing for the Rhodes Scholarship.
And you were a finalist, right?
So, you apply either through your school or through your state. And so I applied through my state. And then it's pretty competitive, that long application you do. And then you have to interview at the state level. And then 2 people from the state go to kind of the regional level. And so I had to fly to Atlanta and interview at this huge law firm. And obviously, you're doing group interviews, group socializing. So even though it's like a happy hour, this is in some ways an interview as well with people who are pretty much at the top of their field in any specialty. So it's not just people who are interested in medicine. It's people.
Are these people like former Rhodes Scholars that are interviewing you?
And some of them are former Rhodes Scholars, yes.
Wow.
Not all of them. Some of them are just really at the height of whatever career they're in, law, policy, whatever it is.
But by the time you've interviewing for a Rhodes Scholar, you're already AKA, right?
Yes.
You've already done Phi Sig. You've played on, so you've been through some crazy situations already. Even leading up to those scholars.
And that's what I love about Howard. That is. You don't understand, the lessons you learn at Howard extend so much beyond the classroom, and those. The things that will carry you.
And you don't even realize it at the time.
You don't.
Because you got to think, when we remember in Phi Sig, I remember Phi Sig made us learn lift up your voice and sing. And we had to constantly sing it, start over. And I just remember why, what are we doing this for? But then, 20 years later, it's like you take pride. Oh, I know that song. I know all the verses, I could just whip it out, I had Chris on here, and I was like, I said, it was like a trivia question. I was like, what's the Black national anthem? And then he was like, lift up your voice and sing. And then he was like, which stanza you want me to go to say to you? So yeah, you're right, because everything at Howard has a process. No matter what organization you join.
Everything. Oh my God. The band, the choir.
Yeah.
But that's what life is about, right? You definitely need some basic content stuff to get through certain fields and to get through life. But life is more about the other things, like navigating processes, building relationships. To go into a room of alpha chapter AKAs and to try to get them to talk to you and have a conversation. Do you think trying to do that for the Rhodes was any harder? No. It was like, if I can go and spark conversation with people who are probably going to intentionally make that hard to do, I can do this, right? So there's
Right,
so
you're right, and that's a good point. You intentionally make it hard to do, you know? So when you become an AK, when they say, "Hey, you've," what was that feeling like? Because from being at Howard, a lot of women or young ladies go out for these organizations, especially AKA, especially Delta. But what was it like, even though you kind of knew, like, hey, I'm probably gonna make the line, you know, given all your success, but I'm sure there was an element of like honor that came with that. What was that like when you found out?
No, I mean, it felt amazing. It was like, I'm going to be a part of a history and heritage that is so special and unique for our people and in this country. And not only are you going to be a part of that, but you're going to be a part of that at the chapter where it all started, right? Alpha chapter. And so it was, again, humbling. It was an honor. I was excited. It was something that I wanted. And you may not know this, but I had been pursuing Alpha Kappa Alpha since pretty much like freshman year. And then,
Hmm.
at our school, you can't become a member in your freshman year. So you have to wait until your sophomore year. Well, so I was pursuing that all sophomore year. And then things didn't work out that they had aligned that year. So now I'm someone who's actually having to wait until their junior year, still pursuing what I'm committed to and interested in. And so to finally realize that it's going to happen was even more special. So sometimes they say, opportunities and dreams deferred can still have a very special place, even when they're deferred. And sometimes, even in that deferment, you can appreciate them even more.
So you cross AKA. This is your junior year.
So, yeah, spring 2000. So it was in my junior year.
So at least you still got a year to kick it in, you know.
Yeah, so I mean, that was great. Like, I was glad to still have that year,
Yeah,
but
get
there's a
cracking.
lot when you're wrapped up in it that year before.
Yeah, no, I
Many
totally
kind
get
of
it.
people
And
out there who know this, who know like they're waiting for the line. Oh, we're not having it. And some people know that their whole organization got snatched from campus, and it wasn't even a possibility while they were there. So it's a lot, but it was nice to at least know that I was going to have that year. That's right, and that's the year that I was president.
wow. So what was it like coming out? Because you strike me as somebody that knows the history. You probably knew you was on point when you was online. What was it like for you to? Because they had to know she got a 4.0. Oh, Miss 4.0. What was it like for you to come out finally? What was that feeling like to come out on Howard's campus after you've seen women in '98 come out, knowing the history, not just at Howard, but globally? What was that like for you to come out?
It was special, and to do it with my line sisters, to know that we all had the same commitment, the same energy, the same excitement, and now we get to have that same experience that we all looked at 98 having with such like envy and excitement. And now this is the day everybody is out on campus to see you. That was very exciting. And then not to mention that after that, now you just get to be on the yard. Now it's like you and yeah, you had your whole crew of friends and stuff, but now you have a whole kind of line and a whole sorority there with you on campus that has such power that people feel when like your presence is known on campus. And then Fridays, just being on the plot and being able to just enjoy all of that was very special. Not to mention, again, in these organizations, it's beautiful because it's people who are like you in their own fields. You interviewed my line sister Latanya Clark, who is doing her thing in business, and so you interviewed my line sister Asha, who is doing her thing in the entertainment industry. So, and that's just what's so special about it, right? It's not that you become a member of Alpha Chapter just to say you're like a member of Alpha Chapter, AKA, but there is power behind that because there are women who are doing exceptional things. I mean, not just on our line, but even lines to follow. And it's nice being a part of that.
So when did you meet Chris, your husband?
Yes, so he says that we met at Howard in the Louisiana Club, but I don't really remember that. And Chris and I are like about 5 years apart. So when I started Howard, he happened to stay on campus because he's an architecture major, and that was 5 years. So he was in his fifth year, but by that point, he was kind of had done all of Howard. He was finishing his Mr. Howard year. Because what's funny is that I obviously knew him because he was Mr. Howard in my freshman year. And so he says we met there. I don't really quite remember it, and we had such an age gap, at that time. But of course, I remember his brother and sister. So Eric and Kara, to me, were really on campus when I was on campus. So I really knew them before I knew Chris. Chris and I would ultimately meet at Harvard.
So one of the things that, I only have phenomenal people on my show. So of course, Chris' bio, crazy. Not just his professional bio, but the Howard bio, crazy. Yeah. Like when I talked to him, he told me that he put a lot of pressure on himself when he was at Howard to achieve certain things. And he kind of said, if he could do it over, he wouldn't put as much pressure, even though he said the experience was phenomenal. He was just saying, like, early on, he was like, I got to do this, this, and that. How ironic is it that you guys would cross paths and meet, and then, obviously go on to get married and have kids and both be from the same state, and still, go on. Do you get asked a lot, like, man, or do people say you guys are like the perfect couple? Do you get that a lot?
Yeah, or the Huxtables in reverse, or
yeah,
all of that. Yes, I mean it's kind of almost like storybook in the sense just of how we met, and how we ended up getting married, because we dated at Harvard for just a few months.
And then did he go to Harvard too?
Yeah, he went to Harvard.
Oh my goodness. Oh my Lord.
Podcast?
Yeah, I'm just refreshing myself, but like the parallels are just insane.
So if you hear the parallel, so he comes to Harvard, I'm at Harvard, we date for a short time, but then it doesn't work out, right? I think he's old, like he's over 25. I'm like 22. I'm like, he's old. He's in his like deep, phase at the Harvard Kennedy School, doing his kind of still like really kicking a little bit. And so it doesn't work out then. But then the parallel is then he leaves and goes to Georgetown for law school, and then goes back home to Baton Rouge. Well, then I leave Harvard and go to Hopkins. So I essentially
crazy. Stalker.
Exactly, right? And then it's not until I had gone like on this badmatch.com date, and so I was in DC for the date. It just was like, not good. So then I wanted to go and just hang out at a spot at Busboys and Poets, which is what I like to kind of hang out. I'm like, just hanging out. Like, let me just relax. And then Eric comes in, his brother, and we start talking. I was like, yeah, just finished this bad day, blah, blah, blah. He's like, well, my brother Chris is, he's back in Baton Rouge now. And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, Chris, who I dated, like 5 years ago. And, now I'm living in Baltimore and he's in Baton Rouge. Okay. He's like, well, here's his number, if you want to call him. I'm like, okay. Thinking, probably not. I mean, and he did the same thing. But then guess who called?
He called you?
He called me.
Wow. Yo, that's nuts.
Yeah.
That's nuts. That's crazy. I mean, the whole Louisiana, Harvard, Hopkins, Georgetown, that whole Alpha, aka like the whole everything is crazy. And it's funny how things just tend to work out. Do you ever feel like like pressure? Do y'all ever feel pressure from like the outside world to be like a certain way?
I think what's interesting about us is I don't think we feel a lot of pressure from the outside world. No, I can't say that. I mean, I'm sure Chris spoke for himself, but Chris is far more strategic and focused than I am.
Really?
I know that may seem unusual, but just like you said about Howard, I mean, he was very focused on a lot of things. I have like a general like background idea of that focus, but it's not usually to the same level that he is. And so we are different in that way. And so I think most of us, a lot of our drive is really internal and like what we kind of want to accomplish more than what people are expecting kind of for us to accomplish.
You both are very successful in your respective careers, but it seems like you've been successful with each other. And what is it like to be in a marriage like that, where you both are having career success, you both have phenomenal success giving back to the community, you both have 3 children who you love, you're both devoted to each other. What is it like being able to grow with somebody like that, from academia all the way to career, and and still going?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to give people the space that they need to grow. I mean, I think that's clear. Like when you have 2 people who are fairly independent and ambitious, as we are, you have to give them the space to do the things that they need to do. So, for example, like I always knew Chris was going to be in politics. And so when he ran for Secretary of State, it was like, okay, let's go, let's do it. He took a semester off. Unfortunately, we were blessed enough that my salary was able to kind of help support that so that he could do a sabbatical and kind of do what he needed to do. And it's like, that's what he wants. That's what he needs right now. Let's go for it. When I wanted to train for a half Ironman, which sometimes required 3.5 to 4 hour workouts on a Saturday, he understood that I need those spaces so that I can be a better mom, so that I can be a better wife, right? I'm not like your traditional wife or mom. And I actually push back on the idea that there is this notion of a traditional wife and mom. But if we're going to use that word, I'm not that, right? And so he knows that, he accepts that, and he understands that as part of that, I need to go run and bike and swim, and I need to pursue these other things. And so he gives me the space to do that. Like I try to give him the space to do the things that are important to him. And so out of actually my Ironman training is when I feel like I started getting the idea and the focus around med school admit and starting, a whole nother business.
So let's talk about med school admit, because when I looked it up, is that a way to help folks in the community get admitted to medical school?
Yeah, 100%. So there's about 5% of physicians are African American. I mean, that's just really abysmal. And if probably look at male physicians, African American males, it's way worse than that. So we know that women in most fields are kind of surpassing men in terms of higher education, and especially in medicine. And so as kind of a diamond in the rough, being an African American physician, young other African Americans would find me about like, how can they get into medical school, saying they were pre-med, saying they wanted to apply to medical school. But when I talked to them, I realized like, this is what you're saying, but what you've done and your ability to get into medical school, they don't add up. Like you're not ready, you're not, like the Gia of Howard knew that there were things that you had to do to get to medical school and to be successful in that pursuit. And Gia focused on those things. There's so many kids who have no idea that there are things that you need to be doing from day one, which I did from day before one, to make your competitive medical school applicant. And I was kind of just tired of having, especially minority students, come to me wanting to see a dream realized that I knew they could not attain with the background work that they had done to that point. And so I said, like, what can you do? Like, I can have lunch with you. I can talk with you and tell you what to do, but that's not really going to help you. And I was like, these individuals need a real program that helps them know how to become a competitive medical school applicant. And that's where Med School Admit came from. Like,
so I noticed that you also, not only do you provide resources, but you provide accountability.
yeah.
So, for people who saying, hey, I want to do this, it's not just, here goes some books. You're actually being proactive with them on attaining this goal of going into medicine.
Yeah, I mean, the program is 9 months. So you are assigned to a physician advisor. You meet that
Wow,
person.
it's 9 months.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, you're not intensely doing something necessarily that 9 months, but that's what it takes to get through the program, which means that you're meeting with your advisor every 3 months. We have it's basically based on 5 pillars
Mhm.
of what we know it takes to be a competitive medical school applicant. As simple as that, 5 things. But so many people don't even know what those 5 things are. They don't know how to excel in those 5 things. They don't know how to create a narrative around themselves, even when they're doing some of those things. And so we say, look, you fill out a form. Let us know where you are in these 5 attributes. And then you have a physician advisor who looks at that form and says, hey, good, but not good enough. These are things that you can work on to be stronger. And then we want that student going to work on those things. And then you meet again in 3 months, right? That's the accountability. If I tell you to do something and I meet with you in a year, you're probably going to remember in like month 11 when I remind you we got to meet and try to hurry up and do it so that it's done by the time of our meeting. Hey, all of us, we're busy.
That's me.
Oh, Dr. Tyson told me a year ago,
That's me.
meet, let me do it. So by putting it in 3-month increments, then you fill out a form again. So we see, did you do the stuff we said you needed to do to be competitive? And then your advisor pushes you more. Keep working on this. So that after the 9 months, you can see yourself where you've come from in terms of your level of competitiveness, and your physician advisor has given you a roadmap of what it takes to be successful. Then I also created an online course. So then you have a course that you should be doing.
Wow. So you put a lot into this.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a
Is
great.
this a nonprofit or a for profit?
It's for profit.
So you put a lot of not just thought, but I guess capital, into making this work and leveraging your relationships as well.
Yeah, and that's what. Yeah, I mean, because I wanted to be successful. So and I wanted to be standardized, right? So I want to make sure that if I'm not your advisor, you're
Wow.
still getting the basic content. So the online course goes through all of the pillars in depth. We have documents that are linked to that for resources, and we have students create what's called an MSA notebook.
How
So
did you
they're
develop the online course? That had to be tough.
Yeah,
Like,
so what's great is that pretty much, I was at Harvard, at Hopkins. I actually went to UCSF for a year and did research. I was at Baylor in Houston, at Tulane. And I also, from people who are at Harvard, they then went to all the best institutions around the country and actually around the world. It just so happens that most of them are in the United States. And so I used those relationships and had those people infuse their advice and their expertise into med school admin, and then created the online content and then had those individuals review it. Even my program director at Hopkins, Charlie Weiner, who has seen thousands of med students, come through, who then did residency, and thousands of amazing residents, at Johns Hopkins. And so all of those people infuse their expertise into
this
med
is
school.
amazing. I did not know that you put that much into this.
Even though we're for profit, my goal is to really partner with institutions, because I don't want costs to be a limiting factor why people can't have this exposure. And so the goal is to really partner with institutions who then really subsidize the program for their students, which is a win-win. Because you want students who are competitive applicants, because you want them to get into med school. And then you can in turn say that your school gets their students into medical school, right? And so we actually have a partnership with LSU that we're going on our second year with LSU College of Science, and we run the program at LSU, and we had around 42 students this past year, and we have the capacity for 50 students to be in the program next year. So again, the goal is that access is not an issue, because that's often
Wow, this is truly amazing. When you hear stuff like, if you're a black woman and you want to date, marry a black man, you're going to have to date down. Have you heard something like that before I keep going? Have you heard that?
Yeah, of
You got
course.
to
Yeah.
date down. You're going to have to settle. You're going to be, if you want to have a great career, you're going to be single.
Yeah.
Um,
I say BS.
How has this worked? I mean, you are the opposite of, are you an outlier here, or is it BS, like you said?
I mean, it's BS, right? Like when I was at Harvard, yeah, granted, I would be at Harvard going out, right? This is when I was dating, going out. You're a Black man at Harvard saying you're at Harvard Med School. It's like, oh my God, everybody's like flocking to you, want to come to you. When you meet somebody and they're like, oh, you're at Harvard Med School, they're like, oh, you must be smart. It's like, okay, that's how we're gonna have the conversation. So there are challenges to being at certain levels when you're trying to date, for sure. But I don't accept or receive that you can't meet the right people who are willing to step up to that caliber of a woman. And there are men out there who are willing to do that, as exemplified by my husband.
You said your girl's name was Kelly, who got into Harvard. Is that her name?
Yes.
So when you guys talk about your college experience, any parallels, any similarities, or is it like y'all did what? Like, I'm sure Greek life isn't the same, or it's totally different at Harvard. I'm sure, it's just a lot of huge differences, but I'm sure you guys probably talked, about your experiences. What was like what's the compare and contrast between what she told you about her undergrad experience at Harvard and what you experienced at Howard?
Yeah, they're very different. And so it was both Jelani and Kelly, my two close friends from high school that went to Harvard. And when we talk about it, the things that I noticed that are different is just like the Fab Five and the BF Circle, just the level of tightness of the crews that you have while there, and then those relationships that carry on. I know they have some close friends who they keep in touch with, but I don't gather it's the same number and the same kind of types of relationships that I have from the friends that I made at Howard. Mm-hmm. And then what's even more surprising is that obviously Harvard is Harvard, the name gets you far, but I've always thought about this, and I don't want to speak for them because it may not be correct, but I feel like the network that Howard has and the reach of that network is beyond any other that I've seen. Even for a place like Harvard, there are people from Howard who are at the tops of their fields in high positions in every field you can imagine: entertainment, medicine, government, policy, business. And that is just unbelievable. And I feel like accessing those networks, to me, seems sometimes maybe a little bit easier having come from Howard and using that Howard name.
Do you feel that Howard adequately prepared you for the education that you received at the other schools, or did you ever feel a little bit behind?
No,
we didn't learn this at Howard.
Yeah, no, not at all. I didn't. And people always ask that. I felt completely prepared for Harvard because I learned at Howard, but what I learned in terms of content is not what has made me successful. The stuff I learned at Howard was the other stuff, like the life skills, navigation, confidence, knowing who you are when you walk into a room, being able to speak to people clearly and look them into the eye and tell them what you want and need, right? Those are the things that are helpful. As a physician, you have to navigate a team. You have to be a leader. You have to know how to communicate your ideas. You have to know how to speak up for what you think is going on. Those are important things as a physician. You have to have compassion. You have to have empathy. You understand that as a minority. You understand the struggles. You learn a lot about that at Howard. And so you are not afraid to share that when you go into a different environment. Because, I could learn. So, Harvard was going to teach me stuff. Yeah, med school is hard, but there was no issue in terms of trying to learn the content.
Why is it that it seems like every time there's some type of disease or virus or statistic, it always impacts Black people the worst? From a person that has exposure to all that knowledge, is it that our immune systems are worse? Are we like why is it that first coronavirus, Black people can't get it?
Yeah.
Next thing you know, all Black people dying. Like every time I go to the doctor, I went to the doctor just recently and she was telling me about my blood pressure. And I'm like, damn, I thought I ate relatively well. But, from a medical point of view, why is it that historically, Black people always seem to get the short end of the stick?
two words: systemic racism. I mean, we get the short end of the stick on everything, not just healthcare, but in terms of economics, education, and all of it has to do with systems that have been long put in place that did not allow us to have equal access, equal resources, and equal playing field. So I'm so proud of the work that I do. We haven't even talked about my real job, which is as a transplant hepatologist, in that I also work at LSU, Louisiana State University, and that's where I only do kind of Medicaid and more underserved care. And I'm so glad I have that as a part of my career and not just the part where I'm taking care of kind of overly resourced and insurance people. But when you are under resourced, under access to healthcare, which we tend to be disproportionately in terms of our access to medical care, follow up with medical care, then overall we are in a worse state physically. So we have a higher proportion of diabetes, higher proportion of coronary artery disease, higher proportion of strokes. So when you're unhealthy and you're in the middle of a pandemic and you have an infection, even though people are getting equally infected, my ability to combat that infection, I'm already disadvantaged because my health is not in a very good state. And when we look at it, when you control, it's not race so much. It's probably more when you control and actually if you actually studied it, and this will come out probably later, it's that it's people who have more kidney disease who are at higher risk of a poor outcome. If you're obese, you have a higher risk of bad outcome from COVID. So it's not that you're Black, it just also happens that Black people tend to be more obese. We tend to be the ones more with hypertension, more with kidney disease. And so when you're already afflicted by those things, you just are too vulnerable to really fight it off, like someone else who's been seeing doctors all the time, can easily access healthcare, can easily access food that's nutritious and not in food deserts. So it's so complex, and it's less about actually race. There may be some genetic components, but it's less about that and more really about our healthcare system and the overall health status of African Americans, which tends to be poorer than the majority populations.
How much is it, is due to like our own just bad eating habits? And I know you mentioned not having access to a lot of things, living in food deserts, which contributes to, there's a McDonald's on every corner. Ain't no Whole Foods on every corner. It's easy if you're a parent and you only making $15 an hour, you can go to McDonald's and buy a Happy Meal for $2. It's already made, and versus cooking the food for your kids. What can we do to be proactive? Because to eat healthy, it's almost a luxury. Because you got to have time to cook, and it's a little bit more expensive, and it's a lifestyle adjustment. What can we do to be proactive with making ourselves live a healthier lifestyle?
Yeah, and I think we're trying. I think there's always going to be some level of personal responsibility, but I'm very anti putting it all on personal responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always just easy for people to access the food they want. My patients have to take buses to come to see me or get Medicaid transportation to see me because where they have to get healthcare is not close to where they live. I mean, it's complicated. So there's some personal responsibility, but I don't want to put it on that. But yes, there are things that people can do. And I feel like even people in under-resourced areas are trying to do it. I mean, we have kids out here growing gardens so that they have some of their own fruits and vegetables that they can actually do kind of their own little garden to table, farm to table. And so people in under-resourced areas, and that's what we always do. And that's the frustration, is that even when we don't have, but we see what's out there that's better, we're people that are always trying to fight and claw, even against being under-resourced, to try to live a better life. And so, yes, the thing is trying to watch what you eat. Portion control is big. Limiting salts, lean meats, ground turkey, chicken breast, fish. Avoid trying to have fried foods if you can, if possible. Limit going to fast foods. And I tell people who have trouble losing weight, look, if you just stop going to get fast foods and cut out sugary drinks, that's half the battle. Before I stress you out with you thinking you got to eat chicken breast all day or salads all day, no. Just stop going to fast food restaurants and stop drinking sugary drinks. Let's just start there, and you will make a difference in your health. And give me 30 minutes of exercise 3 times a week. And I know you're not going to run and swim and bike like I do, but do something that gets your heart rate up. And the more out of shape you are, the easier it is to get your heart rate up. So just do something where your heart rate gets up and it's at a sustained level. 30 minutes, 3 times a week. Let's start there. And then we can, kind of build from that. And those are just basic things that we could at least do. We do have to take some responsibility of how we eat and exercising.
A lot of people don't trust. A lot of Black people don't trust doctors. Especially Black people that may have grown up in like the 50s or 60s. And with good reason. Given everything that they lived through. May not trust doctors. So they might say, you know what, I'm gonna change my diet because if you go to the doctor, they're gonna prescribe you medication, and then it's going to lead to some other issue, versus, like some people say, well, change your diet, like a plant-based diet, or, do things that are all natural. What do you think? I mean, what are your thoughts on like the medicine versus like the natural type of concepts of healing?
Yeah. We've got to put a better focus on prevention. That's 100%. We've got to get away from kind of big pharma, the idea that we need a pill to fix everything. Because there is a lot that can be changed. Not everything, but the majority of things that are going on with people's health and why we have poor health outcomes are related to what we eat, our weight, smoking, alcohol, and a lack of exercise. That's the bottom line. You can argue all day if you want on that, but it's what we eat, how we exercise, if we're smoking, we're drinking, and those are kind of important.
What about like stress?
Stress, we know that too. The more stress you have, right? But all of those are factors that we can work on that don't require a pill. Mm-hmm. So I agree with you 100%. People need to stop, guys, get off the cigarettes. Right? Mm-hmm. For a lot of minority communities, we're late adapters in trying to, and also it's socioeconomics in that too, that we become late adopters in kind of adopting healthier habits, right? The more money we have, those people gave up cigarettes long ago. We kind of wait to try to finally kind of catch up. So I agree, we have to focus on prevention. And there are a lot of things that we have control over. Sure, at some point we may try those and we still need blood pressure medicine. But as a system, I think, and as a healthcare community, we don't focus enough on those factors that we know are intervenable, that people can change and will change outcomes, right? Coronary artery disease is around what we eat and smoking a lot of the times. Cancers, lung cancers, and a lot of cancers we know are attributed to what we eat and smoking. I mean, those are some of the biggest killers. Strokes, we know are related to smoking. Small vessel disease because of, plaque and what we eat. So there are a lot of things that we can do. And so I'm 100% on focusing on prevention. And those are things we control. And in fact, when I was training for my half Ironman, I was vegan during that time. And I felt so much better. I had better endurance working out for hours with not eating meat and not eating any animal-based products than when I was eating on a meat-oriented diet.
I don't know if I can give up meat totally, but I did give up pork because they told me I had high blood pressure, and they was just, like they said, get sodium, got to cut that. Fried foods, got to cut that. Pork, they told me to cut that. But man, it's so difficult to give up these things after you've just been eating them for so long,
And it's just easier. But the thing is, like when I have my patients do it, you feel better when you do it. So you know that it's stuff your body just is not processing and using well, but it's life, right? Life is hard. So if you want to stop and pick up Chick-fil-A or whatever it is you want to eat, it's just easier. And in this time where life is changing, most people are stress eaters, which is why most people are gaining weight during COVID. So it is what it is. We just have to try to see if we can recognize it and try to say we want a longer and more healthier life, right? It's quality to me over quantity. Now, I suggest that if you make these changes geared towards prevention in terms of what you eat, not smoking, drinking in moderation, keeping your weight at a healthy balance, that you'll get both quality and quantity. And that's what I want. I want to be 60 and still feeling like, I can run a half marathon.
For sure. So you're the only liver specialist in Baton Rouge, is that correct?
That's right.
How does that happen in 2020?
Yeah.
That it seems I don't know medicine, but it just seems odd that that's the case. You know,
Yeah.
in the Baton Rouge region, we're not just talking about, this is Baton Rouge is one of the bigger cities in Louisiana, right?
You're correct. Well, actually, we have 3 transplant programs here. 2 are in New Orleans, 1 is in Shreveport. So I'm essentially, and Shreveport is way in the north of the state, and New Orleans is way in the south of the state. So I'm really the only liver specialist in the rest of the state, pretty much the whole middle part of the state, which is challenging because there's a lot of liver disease between hepatitis C, alcohol, liver disease. Now fatty liver disease is a growing cause of cirrhosis of the liver. People don't know that. It will probably surpass hepatitis C very soon as the leading cause and need for liver transplantation. And that's just based on people being obese, having cholesterol issues, and having diabetes
Hmm.
as a growing cause of cirrhosis and need for transplant. These are
Cirrhosis is,
cirrhosis is end stage scarring in your liver.
and that comes
Results
from
in, results in liver failure and liver cancer.
as a result of the eating we talked about, drinking, all those activities, right?
Yeah, so a common cause of cirrhosis is hepatitis C. So usually that comes from injection drug use, but it can come from people who got blood transfusions, before we were really screening well. So it's not always from that, but that's a common cause. Then alcohol is what people mostly think of in terms of having cirrhosis. But now it's fatty liver disease, and fatty liver disease is because most of those people have issues with being obese.
So are you saying I can't drink?
No, you can drink. It's just that should be in moderation. Now in Louisiana, we party, so we don't we don't know what moderation is, right? And for women, it really should be like 1 alcoholic beverage a day, and for men, 2. But in New Orleans, you know, somebody tell you they have 6 alcoholic beverages, they think that
So
you know, moderation
so drinking 2 alcoholic beverages a day is considered moderation?
is moderation. It shouldn't be any
Wow.
more than that.
I thought that was excessive. Okay. And what about drinking water?
That's getting on the higher end, but at least you're staying within a safe range in terms of the health of your liver.
What about like water intake? How important is that?
Yeah, so water is very important. I mean, we're made mostly of water, and so people need to be drinking. Ideally, they're 64 ounces a day if possible. Or what I do is just try to. I think the easiest way to do it is just keep a big container with you and just make sure you drink 1 or 2 of whatever, however much that contains in a day. And I think that's really important. I mean, there's a lot that we can do for our own health. And people really have to realize that. I think we just reject it because just like I learned when I was going through my master's in public health program, behavior is the hardest thing to change. So if you can tell people you can give them a pill for it, there are a lot of people who are out there who are like, look, well, just give me the pill. And even the people who don't want the pill, they don't want to do enough of what it takes to stay consistent with behavior changes. People don't want to change their behavior.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a lifestyle. It's not just, it's a complete lifestyle, because a lot of food that is bad for you per se is it tastes really good and it's easy to put together. Like it's easy to go on Uber Eats and order some food and it'll be there at a certain time. You don't got to wash dishes. I mean, it'll just arrive and it's there. Like if we know that all of these foods are so damaging to us long term, why are they legal? Like why is it legal to have, like I could understand, okay, we want to give people options, but for so long marijuana was illegal, you
Mhm.
know, and I'm sure, and of course, everything should be regulated, but there are things out here that are perfectly legal that are sold in grocery stores across the world and targeted at our community
Yeah,
that are legal, and granted, it might not hurt you when you're 17, but by the time you're 30,
yeah.
it's because I have students, like I was in Planet Fitness like a few weeks ago, and I had a student. He had like triple bypass like heart surgery. I'm like, damn, dude, you 26. You know what I'm saying? Like, why are these foods and these ingredients legal?
I mean, just look at cigarettes and alcohol. Look at the amount of like disease and death. And also, not even just to mention breaking down of families because of like alcohol abuse. I mean, a lot of what we see that is like kind of bad and wrong in our healthcare system, why people are sick and dying, are from just separate from food, is just tobacco and alcohol, and yet they're still legal. And that's because we have decided in a society that really we want people to have choice, regardless of what the consequence of those choices might be. And that has come from an economic and capitalistic perspective, which
So
we've
it's
decided,
about the money.
takes priority over human life.
Now,
And
I'm not saying alcohol should be illegal at all. I'm more so saying, like, for example, when I was a teacher, I would have kids coming to first period, or before first period, Doritos, you know what I'm saying? Skittles, like
yeah,
scarfing them boys down.
yeah.
I'm more so speaking in terms of places like that are able to, like that are able to just target those type of
Yeah.
products. I remember some cigarette company a long time ago, they used to have a cartoon for their logo. And later on they got banned because it was saying that they were targeting kids. So once kids turned 18, that was a cigarette company that they were going to choose. Or even if they wanted to start early, they were going to start smoking because of that. But is it just a pure economic thing as to why all this
So
stuff is so
the food
accessible and
industry
legal?
have a big lobby. To me, there's no reason why there should have been like milk campaigns in schools. There are big concerns about milk, and people always find it odd, like how are we the only humans that still drink other animals' milk after a certain time? And there's a lot of concerns about dairy's association with cancers and a lot of problems around dairy. The meals that are served in school are not always the healthiest, but there's actually big lobbies behind why cheese is like pushed in the school system. And so it's problematic because it's not just neutral. It's not just for our kids' benefit. There's a lot of money, capitalism, economics that goes into what is allowed in the schools. And I think you're right. The kids only eat what we provide them. And kids will eat better, especially if they start that earlier and are exposed to things that are healthier. They will eat better. But if you start them with Doritos and hot Cheetos and pickles and all this other stuff that they have access to and all these high sugar foods, then that is what they're going to want and that's what they're going to crave. Because we know a lot of those with the sugar, it works on some of the same receptors that comes with addiction, right? And so it just feeds behaviors of eating more of those types of foods. But none of that is by accident. A lot of that is intentional, unfortunately. And if you haven't watched Forks Over Knives, then you definitely need to watch, Forks Over Knives. And it just talks about the issues that we have with foods. And, I got into really watching a lot of those Forks Over Knives with the health, cowspiracy, and just understanding how a lot of our impressions and even how the food pyramids are created, a lot of those are influenced by a heavy kind of food industry lobby that doesn't necessarily correlate with the science or what's best for us.
Welcome to the Go Fish Village podcast. As a Chinese proverb says, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. At Go Fish, our goal is to teach individuals just like you how to build wealth through real estate. So we talked about, you're the founder and CEO of Med School Admit. So we need to promote that more. I feel like that I need to push that more on the Howard group, because I had your profile on here. I'll go ahead.
I think it's so critical. I mean, there's so many people I know who are my friends now, and then students I've met who wanted to become doctors but they had to choose other careers, other paths, because they did not have the right guidance and direction to accomplish their goal. And that's what med school admit is designed to do. And I literally want us to partner with any school that is willing and able so that we can make sure their students know what it takes to get into medical school. I mean, it hurts my heart that there are a lot of people, even at Howard, at the FAMUs, at other places, that are trying to go to international medical schools because they're not competitive enough. And a lot of times when you do that, they can't get back to do residencies here, so they still can never practice. Or they go and want to do medicine, but they never did research. They didn't have the right community service exposures. They weren't prepared for the MCAT. And so the challenge I find with med school admin is that there are a lot of students and parents who don't know how important a program like this is. So it's
your program, if I want to sign up, I'm in college.
Mm-hmm.
I'm junior year, senior year. I need to start getting serious about which med schools I'm going to apply to.
Freshman year.
Freshman year.
And
so you said 9 months, but it's longer than that?
No, so it's just 9 months of the program. Now there's we have different programs that you can do for where you are. But the point that we're trying to make to students is that you got to really start this stuff early. Mm-hmm. So it's ideal to do the program in your freshman and sophomore year. You apply to medical school in the spring of your junior year. So that's why, just like you said, that's the problem. So many parents, so many students think, oh, let me start thinking about this my junior year. No, you're kind of too late at that point. Now we have something called the MSA assessment for that type of student, where we do a 1 hour in-depth kind of strategy session with you. So we look at saying, hey, okay, you're a junior now. Let me see what you've done. And I'm going to tell you where you need to be. And hopefully you can work on those things so that you have a chance of getting into medical school. But ideally, we like people doing what's called our MSA preparation course. And that's the 9-month one, where we have those 9 months to make sure you are completely ready. We also have the online course only. So if you say, look, I don't really need a personal strategy, I just need some direction, then you can also just do the online course, on your own.
So, what differentiates? So first, how much does something like this cost for a person that wants to sign up?
Yeah. So,
a range.
Yeah. So it's a range of the programs that goes anywhere from like $600 to all the way up to, $1,500, depending on what program you decide that you want to do. But that's all based on kind of what you need. And all of those are through our website too, at medschooladmit.com. That if you go there, you can see all the programs that we offer, and there are actually videos on the website that let you know what.
And you allow people to take like kind of a pre-assessment too, right?
There's not a real pre-assessment because it just depends on what course you want. Like our med school preparation course, like our full course is $19.95 if you're doing it just directly with us. But like I said, the prices vary depending if you were like in our partnership program, then a lot of the cost is paid for by the school. But for the MSA preparation course, that's $19.95. If you were to just do like our online course, then that is $9.95. And then if you were just to do the MSA assessment, which is just kind of like our 1 hour in-depth session, that's $4.95.
So ultimately, your target person are the school systems, so they can pay you and then they can offer this program for free.
Yeah, that's the target. You can do it individually, and we do have people in individual programs because I think it's still needed until we kind of can get out there to build more relationships with schools. But like I would love to have a relationship even like with Howard, because a lot of what we do is virtual, which means that we're a company and a program that's set up for international and certainly countrywide utility.
What is that like dealing with folks that are going through stuff on a daily basis and looking to you for the answer?
Yeah. It's hard because when your liver is not working well, people often don't understand this, but the liver affects a lot of things. It affects your thinking. It can cause confusion. It can make you have bleeding from your gastrointestinal tract. It can cause you to have fluid in your abdomen called ascites, make you turn yellow. It can cause cancer. Ultimately, obviously, it can cause death. And so when people have severe liver disease, they're very sick. And so that's what's really challenging, because I do more benign type liver disease, but because I'm the only one, I end up having to also be responsible for a lot of the sick, and very complicated liver disease. And that can be hard.
Man, it's like a thing where, hey, you got it, but you're not sick enough to see me. Is it that type of demand?
It is that type of demand, but we still get them taken care of. So I have a nurse practitioner that I work with. And so what we've had to start doing, and I do this with some of my patients, is I have them see the nurse practitioner if they have liver disease, but they're not so sick that they have to see me, just so I have the capacity to see them. Because I work at my main job at Ochsner, which is a transplant center. We've actually done the most liver transplants in the country for probably the last 6 or 7 years. I'm going on being there 7 years now. So we're a big transplant institution. And I work there a day and a half a week. But because there's no other liver specialists in the region, I also cover the liver disease clinic with the residents at LSU that I mentioned. So they need help with taking care of their liver patients. So I go there as well. And then we didn't even talk about this yet, but I am the clinical network specialist for the Louisiana Department of Health initiative to eliminate hepatitis C in our state. We're the first state that has put forth a full initiative by our former head of the department, Secretary Rebecca Gee, who has set out a strategy and a 5-year plan to eliminate hepatitis C. And so now I'm getting to do some public health work as well. So I work for the state a day and a half a week. And so when you're kind of specialized like I am, and it's not really a lot of us, it ends up being that I have to wear a lot of hats, which I enjoy because I feel like it's making a big difference. And in fact, the work that I do with the state is quite rewarding because we are providing Hep C treatment to people in Medicaid in the Department of Corrections. And this program has been in existence in just a year, since July 15th of 2019. And we have treated over 4,700 people for hepatitis C.
Is that the one where you said those that 4,700 number, that's more that have been treated over the last 5 years since you got there?
Well, through Medicaid, we've treated more people in this 1 year than they had treated probably in the 5 years combined before starting this program, starting this initiative. And so it shows you the importance of really voting in policy, because this was only possible through Medicaid expansion. And previously, Louisiana had not expanded Medicaid, but with the change to Governor John Bel Edwards, we expanded Medicaid, which made this possible. And so now we're able to provide Hep C treatment to people who could not get it before. But from a public health perspective, knowing that in 10 years from now, 20 years from now, hopefully those people will not develop liver failure, they won't develop liver cancer, they won't need transplants. It shows you the importance of policy decisions and public health. And so I love what I do there because I could never see 4,700 people myself, but in a way I've been able to touch 4,700 lives without having to see them directly.
What are things that you do to maintain balance in your everyday life?
Yeah, that's important because burnout is real. And there was a point where I felt like I was burning out, and you have to listen to yourself. You have to trust yourself. And you have to not be afraid to make changes. And so as an overachiever, you want to feel like you can do everything. And I always feel like can do everything, but I can't. And that's the reality of it. So like for me, my first step was going down to a 4-day work week. I realized with kids, the weekends was not a break, right? You're now in mom mode.
Yeah.
So I take Fridays off. So I'm off every Friday. And I still do work on Fridays because that's just when you have as many jobs as I have, that's the nature of it. But it's my day to do it at my pace, at my leisure. I can have lunch with friends. I can have breakfast with friends. I can figure out when I want to do my workout. And so taking that personal day is huge. And because I know that balance is huge, I'm good to no one if I'm burned out. And the crazy thing about burnout is that when you get burned out, it's very hard to get unburned out. So you got to catch it before you get to that place. And I could see it coming. And so I tried to stop it and kind of headed it off by having a 4-day work week. And that was, life changing for me. It's important to me that I get out and have my exercise time, to ride my bike, to swim, to run. That's quiet time where nobody's asking me anything. Nobody needs anything from me. I can just go. I can listen to music, or I've learned to not listen to music and listen to God speak to me, listen to myself, speak to me. And that's an important balance for me.
So real quick, I want to just do some quick Howard Jeopardy, if
Oh
you
my
got
God.
time.
All
Some
right.
Howard Jeopardy and some rapid fire questions. So the Howard Jeopardy is, these are just questions about our beloved alma mater, seeing what you know. So we'll start off with something real easy. First question is, what year was Howard founded?
I like your shirt because it says 1867.
Very good, very good. I was gonna say what gave it away. Okay. What is the Howard motto?
Oh, the Howard motto. Oh, is leadership in it?
No, it's not.
I don't know. What is it?
It is truth and service. Truth and
Oh,
service.
service. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You're the only person that got that one wrong.
Oh,
What about what is the body of what's the name of the body of water that's closest to Howard?
Potomac?
The reservoir. The reservoir.
Oh, no, used to be the reservoir.
That's a trick question. But yeah, Potomac, I guess, is like the official one. You stayed in the annex.
I did.
Do you remember the address of the annex?
Oh my gosh. You know how many jobs I have, how many children I have?
Oh
I remember
man.
yesterday. This is the problem. No. Let me Google it right quick. Hold on.
Oh man, 2225 4th Street.
Um,
How many Divine Nine organizations were founded at Howard?
oh Lord, now you're gonna make me hold on. AKA Delta, the Q's, Kappas are not, the Alphas were not. Was it 5?
Five. Yes, that's right. Spell Crampton.
Krampton.
No. No.
Is Crampton C?
CRAM, and there's no P in Crampton.
Wait, Crampton is CRAMTON?
Yep.
I don't know if I ever knew that.
Yeah. Reared against the eastern sky. What comes next?
Probably there on Hilltop High.
Good. What's the name of the Black national anthem?
Lift every voice and sing.
Good. What's the zip code of Howard?
Ooh, I feel like I should know this. Oh man. It's like 20001.
20059. Who's the president of Howard?
Oh my goodness.
Oh, I thought you was gonna get that one right.
No, I do know this one. But my mind is just blanking.
It's one of your colleagues.
I know it's Dr.
Dang, that's so disrespectful. So
You
disrespectful.
can't put this part on the podcast.
Man, all that work he's doing.
I
Man.
know. And I don't know why I'm blanking on his name.
Dr. Wayne Frederick.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Man.
You could have made it multiple choice.
That would have been too easy. At least you didn't say Swigert. That would have been bad.
Wayne Frederick, I know that.
Who is Howard named after? Let's leave on the easy one. Who is Howard named after? You got this one.
General Howard.
General Oliver Otis Howard. All right, let's do rapid fire real quick. So rapid fire, you just give an answer. First answer that comes to mind.
Okay.
First thing, U Street or Adams Morgan?
U Street.
Universal health care. First thing
Wait,
that comes to mind.
oh, the first thing that comes to mind, needed,
Homecoming better as a student or as an alum?
better as a alum. Ooh, that's a hard one.
Howard men don't cheat.
False.
When did you first realize that you were the shit?
Oh my gosh. That probably hasn't actually been till after all of my training. I would just say probably now.
When did you first learn to say no?
Also, probably now.
When did you find your voice?
Also, probably now. And when I say now, I just mean, you have phases of life. I mean, in my more into my career phase, right? Like now. Because when you first get out, you just happy to have a job, do whatever everybody says. Then you finally slow down and you're like, wait, hold up. Yeah, I'm the shit. You know what? And I have a voice and I can say no. So I'm like in that phase of my life right now.
Very good. If you weren't doing this, what would you be doing if you weren't a doctor?
If I wasn't a doctor, I would be doing something in business or finance.
Next question. Best moment at Howard?
Gosh, there's so many. I mean, I actually don't remember moments. I just remember the feel of just feeling so free and excited on campus.
Biggest L you ever took? Biggest loss or biggest failure or learning experience?
Biggest failure and learning experience. I think, like I said, like when I didn't get into Harvard for undergrad, and then also when I didn't end up actually getting the Rhodes, those were really both very
Still
disappointing.
mad about that. Financial freedom.
A goal,
Hardest part of being a boss.
managing people's sensitivities.
Worst advice you ever got.
That there is such thing as like a right way to do things.
Start one, cut one. You got to start one, you got to cut one, and you got to bench one. Freshman orientation, homecoming, graduation.
What's start one mean?
Start one means like that's the main one. Like that's the one. So like think about tennis. Like you got your number one singles player,
Okay.
then you got one that's on the bench, then you got somebody that's not gonna make the team at all.
Okay.
So start one, bench one, cut one, freshman
Mhm.
orientation, Howard homecoming, graduation.
Howard homecoming is definitely start one. You
Okay.
can bench freshman orientation
And then you're gonna cut graduation.
and oh no, I mean bench graduation and cut freshman orientation.
Got it. Got it. Dr. Gia Tyson. I knew you when you was Gia Landry, but hey, Dr. Gia Tyson, thanks. You've been a great guest on the show today. Thank you so much for coming on, man. I'm excited to see what some of the things that you do next.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. I'm always down to support anything related to Howard.
Thank you for joining the HU Movemaker podcast, where we highlight folks that have contributed to the Howard legacy at the highest levels. To hear more interviews or purchase merchandise, please visit www.humovemakers.com.